Paris Haute Couture Week approaches, the digital world will be flooded with millions of spectators, analyzing hemlines, whispering about celebrity front row placements, and swooning over silk tulle. But what they're actually watching is an elaborately staged ritual, designed to keep them exactly where they are, on the outside looking in. Today, we're going to look at haute couture not as a fashion showcase, but as a map of raw power. We're going to use the blueprint of French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu to dissect how the ultra elite use unwearable, multi-million dollar garments to perform a 5D chess game of social exclusion. And more importantly, we will decode the unspoken language that separates those who merely admire luxury from those who comfortably own it. Welcome to the theater. Let's raise the curtain. To understand why haute couture holds such a vice grip on our cultural imagination, we have to travel back to mid-19th century Paris. Before a British dressmaker named Charles Frederick Worth arrived on the scene, fashion was an intimate transaction between a client and their dressmaker. The client dictated, the seamstress executed. Worth single-handedly inverted that power dynamic. He didn't just sell clothes. He sold an autocratic artistic vision. He became the first world couturier, a sovereign creator who told the European aristocracy what they should wear. By organizing their wealthy clients into an exclusive club, he established the foundational rule of modern upper class. Status is not determined by what you can buy, but by who has the authority to sell it to you. Following Worth, the French government established the Chambre syndicale de la haute couture. This wasn't a creative collective, it was a political fortress. To this day, the title haute couture is legally protected by the French Ministry of Industry. The rules are intentionally unviable for ordinary businesses. Garments must be entirely custom made, require multiple fittings, and utilize thousands of hours of hand labor by specialized Parisian ateliers. By the 1930s, the bourgeois middle class had learned to copy the aristocracy, so the metric of power had evolved. Enter Elsa Schiaparelli. She realized that wealth was no longer enough. You needed intellectual capital. She did not collaborate with tailors. She collaborated with Salvador Dali and Jean Cocteau. She took raw, provocative surrealism and structured it into the human body. Schiaparelli weaponized meaning through what we call aesthetic distance. The average consumer looked at her surrealist capes and was profoundly uncomfortable. The elite looked at them and recognized the secret code. She proved that true luxury is an intellectual dominance. She forced the world to look at a garment and think, rather than merely envy. In June of 1940, the German army marched into Paris. But they weren't just looting banks and museums. Hitler's regime understood that the true heartbeat of French global influence was its monopoly on taste. Nazi officials raided the headquarters of the Chambre syndicale. They seized secret client lists, architectural sketches, and trade records. Hitler's plan was absolute. He ordered a forced relocation of all Parisian ateliers, master embroiderers, weavers, and pleaters to Berlin and Vienna. Hitler wanted to declare Germany the new cultural capital of the civilized world. He thought culture could be stolen like gold. But he ran into a wall of absolute resistance in the form of one man, Lucien Lelong, the president of French Couture. Lelong traveled to Berlin, stepping into the mouth of the totalitarian beast. He did not beg, he relied on the absolute truth of habitus, the understanding that true culture cannot be transplanted because it is woven into the very soil. Lelong looked at the Nazi regime and said, "You can force us to anything, but Parisian haute couture cannot be moved, neither as a whole nor in its element. It exists in Paris or it does not exist at all." He explained that couture was not a factory.
It was an irreplaceable, hyper-localized ecosystem of thousands of specialized artisans working in hidden attics across Paris. The knowledge passed down through generations could not be written in a manual or forced to work in Berlin. When Christian Dior debuted his new look in 1947, it wasn't just a sartorial shift, it was a geopolitical masterstroke. France was economically devastated, rationed, and physically broken by war. And yet, Dior unleashed meters upon meters of luxurious fabric into a single skirt. The political message was clear. France may have lost its physical infrastructure, but its cultural capital remained completely untouchable. This brings us to Pierre Bourdieu's core realization in his book Distinction. Bourdieu argued that the dominant class cannot maintain its power through money or economic capital alone. Money can be lost. Money can be made quickly by the wrong people. Therefore, the upper class relies on cultural capital, accumulated knowledge, refined tastes, and structural heritages that take a lifetime or generations to truly master. Haute couture is the ultimate physical manifestation of cultural capital. It is an industry that deliberately loses money on clothes to manufacture an aura of supreme legitimacy.
Let's talk about the modern spectacle. When you watch the upcoming Couture Week on your screens, your eye will naturally be drawn to the front row. You will see Hollywood starlets, pop icons, tech billionaires, and an army of hyper manufactured influencers clad in head to toe logos. To the untrained eye, this looks like the peak of high society. But if we apply our emotional intelligence and look closely at the seating chart, we see an intricate class war being played out in real time. Bourdieu divided society into distinct tiers based on their relationship to culture. Let's break down the three groups coexisting in that venue because their behaviors are wildly different. The influencers and celebrities are there to perform a job. They are renting out their temporary social capital to give the fashion house relevance in the mass market. The fashion house treats them with polite, calculated warmth, but make no mistake, they are viewed as commercial utilities. They are entertainment. The true masters of the space are the individuals you almost never see on the runway live streams. They are the ultra high net worth individuals, the private clients. They don't arrive in borrowed clothes surrounded by paparazzis. They slide in through side entrances, often wearing an understated coat from an anonymous atelier, holding a canvas tote bag or an unbranded leather clutch. The social climber looks at the celebrity in the front row and thinks, I want to be her. The woman with true distinction looks at the celebrity in the front row and thinks, she is wearing my lifestyle as a marketing campaign. This is where emotional intelligence comes into play. If you want to navigate these circles seamlessly, whether you're in the historic salons of Warsaw or a private gallery in Los Angeles, you must master the art of looking through the spectacle, never at it. You must observe with influence, with a gentle, appreciative amusement, the way an adult watches a child perform a dance routine in the living room. You do not envy them. You recognize that their high energy, effort is the ultimate proof that they truly do not belong.
Now, let's address the question that plagues every comment section during Couture Week. Who would actually wear that? It looks incredibly uncomfortable and completely impractical. When someone says this, they are loudly announcing their class position to the world. Bourdieu identified a concept called the popular aesthetic, which belongs to the working and lower middle classes. This aesthetic is rooted entirely in utility, function, and comfort. Is the food filling? Is the movie easy to follow? Is the dress wearable and flattering? This is a pragmatic view of life forced by economic necessity. But the upper class aesthetic is defined by something entirely different: aesthetic distance.
Aesthetic distance is the luxury of total emotional and practical detachment. The upper class values form completely over function. In fact, the more unwearable, heavy, rigid, and abstract the garment is, the higher its cultural capital. Why? Because the unwearable garment proves that the wearer does not have to engage in manual labor, does not have to catch a public bus, and does not have to worry about the petty realities of physical comfort. It is the ultimate luxury to submit your body to an uncomfortable, beautiful piece of art simply for the sake of the visual architecture.
Look at John Galliano's recent historic masterpieces for Maison Margiela Artisanal. The models walked like broken dolls, wrapped in latex, distressed tulle, and silicone-coated lace that distorted their natural bodies. The social climber looks at this and feels deep anxiety. They find it ugly or confusing because they are looking for pretty clothes that will make them look rich. But the culture elite looks at this and experiences pure euphoria. They recognize the references to Weimar Republic nightlife, 19th century Parisian portraiture, and the structural deconstruction of tailoring. They have the educational capital to decode the cultural and historic references. They don't need the dress to look pretty. They need it to look subversive.
This is how you level up effortlessly without looking like a climber. In your conversations, in your style, and in your digital presence, you must abandon the need for things to be pretty, nice, or comfortable. If someone shows you a radical piece of art or a polarizing fashion look, you do not comment on whether you like it or dislike it. Liking something is a visceral emotional reaction, and emotion is a middle class vulnerability. Instead, you analyze its intent. You step back, you maintain your aesthetic distance, and say, the way they played with the scale of the shoulder line to completely subvert the traditional 1950s silhouette is incredibly clever. You have to just signal to every high status person in the room that your mind operates on structural analysis, not emotional consumption. As we prepare for the flood of imagery from Paris over the coming days, I want you to remember that the grand theater of luxury isn't something to be intimidated by. It's a game with very specific, highly predictable rules. And the people who comfortably inherit the upper echelons of society aren't superior human beings. They have simply had the luxury of practicing the feel for the game for a little bit longer than you. They have mastered Sprezzatura, the ability to act as though their immense privileges, knowledge, and style are completely natural, effortless occurrences. But for those of us who have looked into the eyes of real trauma, who have fought battles the polite world doesn't like to talk about, we know a deeper secret. True power doesn't come from a pristine, untouched life. It comes from a fierce, calculated intent of a comeback. When you possess the internal grit of a survivor, combined with the intellectual precision of Bourdieu's blueprint, you become completely unstoppable. You don't need an invitation to the salon. You build your own theater. You set your own stage. You let the world come to you. Look closely at the screens this week. Don't look at what they want you to see. Look at the roles they're trying to hide. And I'll see you in the next episode. 10 steps ahead, darling.